Welcome to 506. You're joined by your host again, Stefan. And today my guest is my good friend Anirudh, who I guess we met in math class. I don't really remember.
Yeah, I think it was math class.
Right? I think I,
Yeah.
I sat behind you and I just kept bugging you. I was just like, hey, how do I do this? But we ended up sharing a lot of different classes and definitely one of like the nicest people, nicest person. Wait, one of the nicest people that I know. Yeah, that is right.
Thanks,
But
John.
yeah, so today's I really originally wanted to kind of focus in on what it's like to be in an accelerated 7-year med school program, which well, on one hand, like I think that's really interesting is that um, like when I was applying for undergrad, I was really worried about being funneled into something that I might not know if I really like or not. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm
Mm,
wondering how confident you were that you wanted to be a doctor when you like applied for that. You know what I mean? Because they're kind of like
yeah.
fixated into that track, and you
Yeah,
can't really.
exactly.
So
You have to, I'm sorry, can you say that again?
no, so I was just wondering, like,
Mm.
did you always know that you wanted to be a doctor or you wanted to go into like med school?
Yeah, so for me, I think like from a pretty early age, I definitely knew I wanted to go into medicine or the medical field. And that's a lot of, I guess, like personal reasons. For one, I had my fair share of encounters with doctors. When I was younger, I actually had like an eye condition known as amblyopia. And
Whoa.
yeah, so it was kind of like a lazy eye condition in my left eye, I believe, and this was like a long time ago when I was 6 or 7. And I just remember like I was in the doctor's office, and there were like some specialists, some ophthalmologists, and everything. And at the time, like if you're diagnosed at a certain age, oh, there's a lower likelihood of being able to completely recover from the issue or from the eye condition.
Wait, the
And like
the younger you are, it's or you mean the later it is?
the older you
Right,
are, I guess, like the older they diagnose or identify it, the harder it is, I guess,
right.
to kind of combat or correct the issue. So I remember like going to the doctor's office, and I remember the story too well, but I also remember that like the doctor was a bit like skeptical and cynical about actually helping me recover, because he said like at that point, at that age, it was like 7 or 8, that it was a bit too late to actually receive, like to actually expect the treatment or exercises to work. And so he was a bit like pessimistic in that sense. And to some extent, I have to agree that you have to be realistic as a physician, right? You can't just expect
Right.
miracles to happen. But at the same time, it was a bit disheartening just because I was so young. I was really scared, and like the doctor was very, very like kind of cynical about it. Actually, because my mom, like, she like was my aunt's a doctor, so like my mom asked her sister about like what I could do, and she like talked about doing the same exercise that the doctor suggested. And my mom was really persistent with me, and like she worked with me for a good few months, and actually like surprisingly got my eye condition got much better. And so like it goes to show, like, I think there's like this stigma in society, with physicians especially, that like everyone really respects them. They have a lot of we place a lot of importance on them, right? Because they've gone through so much schooling, and it's a very, I guess, like prestigious career. But on the other hand, because people have like such a high respect and admiration for them, I feel like, you really, if you are a physician, you really have to work hard, and you really, I personally feel like, despite the circumstance, you should try to be as like optimistic as possible and try to persist with the patient. So for me, that was a very large impetus in terms of pursuing medicine, because I knew like if I want to be a physician, I really want to make sure I can provide the best possible care for my patients. And like just remembering that story, and like just remembering how hard my mom worked with me, it kind of inspired me to, kind of pursue that field as well. And so, from that age, I kind of knew like I wanted to go into the medical field, and specifically being a physician, not because, like financial security and all this, but as I said before, there's so much respect a physician gets, and people really look up to you. So I feel like you have a large opportunity to elicit a lot of change and really inspire people to get better. And so with that power, comes a lot of responsibility. But I feel like that's something I really want to pursue.
Okay, wow. I didn't know that about. So does that what is it called again? The
It's like amblyopia, so it's like an impairment in like your eyes. And it's kind of like a lazy eye condition, so one eye tends to be like weaker than the other.
okay, but does that
So
do you still have that or have you like made a
no,
full
no. So it's like pretty much a full recovery. I mean, there's like slight disparities between my eyes, but it's like it's very minimal at this point. And so
wow.
like, yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was like it went on for a year. Like I had to wear an eye patch. I like did some like practice exercises, reading exercises, stuff like this.
Wait,
Pretty much it was like a
you said
no
breathing exercise?
oh reading
Reading.
exercise.
Okay. I
Yeah,
was about to
sorry,
say like,
sorry.
whoa.
Nah,
These
nah,
are really intricate exercises.
nah, nah. Breathing exercises for other things, I guess, but yeah, not for this. But yeah, it was a pretty intensive process. Yeah, like it went on for a good year, and it took some time, but like eventually I noticed results. So it was like quite quite a life changing experience for me.
Wow. I mean, typically what I hear from people who are like, like die-hard fans for the whole pre-med tract is usually, something similar where they had some kind of medical
Yeah.
affliction or some kind of thing that needed medical attention,
Mm-hmm.
and they become like so fueled to become a doctor themselves so that they can help other people. But you, I mean, based on the story, and you can always correct me if I'm,
Yeah.
misinterpreting, but from your perspective or from what you just told me, it sounds like that you noticed that there was something that wasn't as efficient as it should be, and that was
Exactly.
actually what was driving you. Because
Exactly.
and that's really fascinating. I think that really
Mm.
characterizes you as a person
Yeah.
to see that, hey, this can definitely be improved. And while we do have a great understanding of the medical field, we shouldn't just solely base it on statistics and say, oh, it's a lost
Yeah.
cause.
Because
Wow.
yeah, exactly. Because there's like a humanism aspect to medicine as well. It's not just all the science and facts behind it. Like there's so much like more than just reading books and textbooks and just like spitting out like diagnoses. And I think that humanism aspect, that like ability to interact with people and really like kind of motivate people when they're very discouraged is like also very important. And that's something I'm like trying to improve on myself, just to when I do become a physician, I can offer that to my patients.
Right. Wow. So I'm not 100% sure if this is true or not, but I've heard that there are some classes that you do have to take if you do pursue something in the medical field, whether it's being a doctor or a nurse or whatever. But you have to,
Yeah.
like, there are some like cultural sensitivity classes where you have
Hmm.
to be mindful of being like polite on different customs that you might not have experienced in your life.
Hmm.
Like that's definitely playing right back into that whole human nature that you were
Exactly.
emphasizing. So
Exactly.
it's really interesting, and I think it's funny how a lot of people assume doctors are just like very cold cut, like just
Yeah.
encyclopedias of like
Yeah.
ologies and
Yeah.
all
No,
these
that's true.
diseases. But
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, that's true. I think to some extent you always obviously have to have some like interest or basis in science to pursue medicine, but I think it's like so much more than just feeding off like textbooks and stuff like this. You have to really be able to apply it, and specifically you have to be able to interact with people pretty well and just develop that skill over time.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I want to get your input, and I know this is just a TV show, but like in House, he emphasizes that like the emotional connect between doctor and patient can sometimes distract between having a clear diagnosis. So like, what are your thoughts on that? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. And from what a lot of people have told me, that like over time, especially I guess depending on the specialty you go into, like for instance, if you go into oncology, you're dealing with like so many grim scenarios, right? A lot of doctors, they become desensitized over time because it's really hard to stay emotionally invested in all your patients, especially if the outcome is so grim or bleak. But on the other hand, I feel like you have to find the right balance, because I think either extreme, completely being completely detached or being too invested, is unhealthy. And like for its respective reasons, if you're too emotionally invested, as you were saying, you might become blindsided. And if you're too detached, you might not, as in my case, you might not be the doctor might not be the best person to talk to, or like the best motivator to help you get better. So I think it's really hard to draw that fine line, but I think you need a balance somewhere between, I guess, being too invested and like too detached. Because if you're able to find that fine line, you can really interact with your patient optimally. but at the same time not lose yourself and your patient.
Right. I mean, it's definitely not an easy job. Like
Yeah, exactly. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, and
especially
that's
once you
something I have to learn.
specialize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, so that's all stuff that you have to worry about in a few
Yeah,
years.
that's what I'm gonna have to learn these next 4 years exactly.
But why don't we shift gears and talk about what kind of I guess trials and tribulations that you face pursuing an accelerated, med track.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I applied out through high school, and usually like, when you get in, you get in, and then you're pretty much guaranteed a spot in medical school as long as you can maintain your GPA and like hit a certain MCAT score. So in some ways, I would say it's not as stressful. Um, However, there are certain hoops you kind of have to jump through to get to that point, and kind of working your way up to that point can be very hard as well. So I think an important thing to like acknowledge about the pre-med, I guess, profession or like the path you choose to take, it can be filled with a lot of stress and anxiety. I think one thing you have to realize is like pretty much most bio majors or a lot of bio majors in college, they tend to be pre-med. And whether they stick with it or not, and depending on the school you go to, whether it's big or not, there's more or less competition. And with med school, like, it's like the acceptance rate, hovers, like the average hovers probably less than 5%.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Less than 5%, jeez.
Yeah, it's insane, dude. It's insane.
I,
Like,
it's definitely super competitive, and I mean for a
yeah.
good reason. I've heard from someone else who is also pre-med that I think med school is one of the few that like they don't have a quota. Like if no one is good enough for that year, they won't accept anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely
Yeah.
something. I mean, with good reason too. I mean, you're dealing with people's lives, and
Exactly.
a single wrong diagnosis and or like a wrong medication can totally just completely fuck up someone's life. So
Yeah.
I completely understand, but my God, I don't know.
It's pretty competitive, yeah. And I mean, people take gap years and things like this,
Right.
and I would also argue, like, yeah, I'm sure you remember in college, like they have affirmative action and things like this. And like it's harder maybe for certain people. Like I know that, for instance, like a lot of Indians and Asians want to go into medicine, especially Indians. So if you're an
Yeah.
Indian, it already like plays against you, and you go to a school like Rutgers or like some other school, with a lot of Indians in the population. You're kind of already being played against the system if you're pre-med. And it's not like even just that. As I said before, you jump through hoops. You got to do like hospital volunteering, EMS, research, publications. And then my people have to take gap years, and it's stressful because you have to work so hard in college, right? And there's no like guarantees in the end. And I feel like that security you might be able to get possibly with other like professions, like maybe if you go into engineering, for instance, in college, you're likely to probably find a job somewhere in the field, or you could pursue like a master's or something like this. But the thing with medicine is like it's really hard to definitively say like you could have perfect MCAT scores, you could have great extracurriculars, but maybe you screwed up the interview. There's so many like factors involved. I feel it's just becoming more and more competitive every day, and that definitely can be very stressful.
Right. I definitely like that's generally the general consensus that I've gotten from a lot of my friends that are pre-med that they also said like, look, I'm not like my GPA is not high enough, and I mean
Mm-hmm.
like I'm personable, so I could do well the interview, but my MCATs aren't too high. I'm probably
Yeah.
going to take a gap year just so I have a year of experience doing something else. And do you feel like that's something that's becoming more and more common practice is just take a gap year in order to compete
Yeah.
with already
Definitely.
ridiculous standards?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's true. Actually, I'm starting medical school tomorrow. Like classes start tomorrow. Yeah, it's getting ready for that. But like, I met a lot of my classmates, and I think I would say at least 50% are probably non-traditional students, meaning they've taken gap years. They've done like EMT for a year. They've traveled. They've done like Peace Corps. They've done like various things to kind of enhance themselves and their resume.
Wait, so if you're starting then did you already take the MCATs?
Yeah, I took the MCAT, so I took it
Oh
my
my
freshman year.
goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I took it a bit early, but that's because I wanted to take the old MCAT, so I took it.
Oh, right. They did a
Yeah,
complete switch.
yeah, exactly. After I think like January of 2015, something like that. Yeah,
Oh, you took it before, like really early.
yeah, I took it early. Yeah,
That's nuts, man.
yeah. The thing about the program, which is nice, like I have to admit, like in college, compared to other pre-med students, it was less stressful for me being in the program, because you had to maintain a 3.5, which for a pre-med is like, it's not that hard to do. Usually pre-meds have to hit like 3.6, 3.7 to like be
Right.
competitive applicants. And then also there was no like MCAT requirement. It was more just like, as long as your GPA is fine, the MCAT doesn't matter too much. So in terms of that, there wasn't too much stress being in the 7-year program. But I think, I'm still able to, I guess, identify with the pre-med culture in a way, like coming from high school, like building myself up so much so I could be a competitive applicant throughout the whole, I guess, process of like getting into the 7-year program.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you have to have some time, like even though I know you're probably insanely stressed, but you have to have some
Yeah.
times to just look back and reflect at all the decisions you've made, all the classes you've chosen from like high school and middle school, or
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't think about it, but it really is like those early years, and you are really kind of honing in on this one path that you've really taken a huge dedication, and it's really fascinating to see somebody who's like I'm too indecisive to ever pick a, like
Yeah.
right now I have no idea. I'm graduating next year and I have no
Oh, yeah.
idea what I'm doing. So it's really it's interesting, and it's really it's
Mm.
inspiring in a way to see somebody so focused and really want this. Like like you said, like I definitely get the feel that you're stressed about like the, oh, what if I don't make it kind of thing.
Exactly. And I
But
think, more so it's probably stress, I guess, in medical school and like getting through the next 4 years. Because like these 4 years are probably going to be like some of the hardest years. Like for any medical student, like medical school, like other than residency is probably the most like strenuous time of their lives.
the resident, you still have that to
Yeah.
look forward to.
Yeah, exactly. After it ends, I have something else to look forward to. But that's the thing. And I think especially being a med student, and for me too, like I want to talk about, like dealing with stress and anxiety. I think that's a really, I guess, like big issue, especially for a lot of pre-meds, just because, there's so much inherent competitiveness getting into medical school. And even then, it never ends. There's always going to be stress.
It
You're
never ends.
responsible for someone else's life, right? There's a
Right.
lot of like responsibility attached to that. And although you have so much power and so much ability to affect change, there's so much potential for bad things to happen as well. And if you keep it in perspective, it can get stressful at times.
Right. But I mean, at the same time, and this is just through my experience
Yeah.
of neuro, like I'm a major in neuroscience, and
Yeah.
really what I learned from hands-on experience with research is that the fact that like anything works at all is honestly a miracle. Like the amount of potential that like any step of an experiment that can go wrong, like the
Mm.
fact we get any substantial data is a complete crapshoot. Like it's
Exactly.
so the medical field in itself, like if you just think about it, like how humanity came about medicine, it's really just guess and check. And I mean,
Right.
obviously now we have a better way of kind of making an
Yeah.
educated guess, but it's still
Yeah.
there's
It's all
still
trial and error. You're right.
right. There's still a lot out there, and it's still very high risk. And I mean, that's got to be like the most stressful thing because it's a person's life on the line. But
Exactly.
the reward must be something
Yeah.
so different that
Yeah.
like than anyone else can really experience because you forever change this person's life, and you
Exactly.
cure them of whatever sickness, or you help them survive through cancer. It's something that I feel like it's something that you definitely have to want intrinsically as a person to want to help
Exactly.
people. And I feel like that's something that maybe a lot of med school students might lose sight of, that
Mm.
they get so competitive with the data and the numbers that they might lose that kind of humanity, whereas
Exactly.
they forget that, hey, I'm doing this to help people because I want to
Mm.
help people. So
Exactly.
I feel like that's something that I have confidence that you're not going to lose sight of that.
Yeah, I mean it's hard. It's hard, especially you get like so overwhelmed with all the content and information. Yeah, you're right. You can lose sight of like why you want to go into medicine. And I think that's like the biggest reason people either like get very stressed out or anxious throughout the whole process. And I think like just focusing on the overall overarching goal of why you chose to do this, why you're going into it. It's not for the money, it's not for the glory or anything. It's really just to help people. And
Right.
it's like, it's hard to keep that in perspective. Even for me, like starting tomorrow, I'm like mad nervous. But like I guess like the other thing is you really just gotta take it one step at a time. Like every day you gotta remind yourself, why you're doing this. And this every day, like, you take a breather for yourself, take it one step at a time, then hopefully we'll get through it.
Whew.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. I mean, and for me too, like I don't know. I personally, I'm like one of the people who tend to stress out more, I guess, than the average person. So maybe med school isn't the most conducive environment for me not to stress that, because I'm definitely gonna have some mini freakouts. I think I guarantee. But I think you have to have effective outlets, and for any pre-med student out there, whether you're in medical school or you're in college or doing whatever, I think you definitely have to make the time for yourself to every day and like have that time for yourself. And
Right.
there's different outlets. For me, like personally, I like to talk to my parents sometimes. Like sometimes vent to my friends. Just rant it out. That really helps me.
That's
And
super.
yeah,
I'm so glad to hear that because
yeah,
I know a lot of people that don't do that. Like they don't have that
exactly,
good
exactly,
relationship with friends or family, or it's kind of awkward. You kind of have that friend that doesn't really want to hear you
exactly,
out, and then you're like, oh, are we really friends? Are we acquaintances? What's going on here?
exactly, exactly. Like if you find the right friends, I think you're gonna be there for each other. And I'm like pretty fortunate coming from the 7-year program. I've gotten to know a few people really well, and like I know I can count on them. And like if I ever want to talk, they're there. So there's definitely a lot of reassurance from that. And I think
Oh,
just
that's
having a support system is so important. Like one of the reasons why I chose NJMS, and like never want to go that far from home, especially for medical school, or more importantly for medical school, just because you need that support getting through the 4 years, talking to your family and friends through it all.
of course. Wow. So then, have you had a scenario where your support group wasn't available to you?
I would say, like for the most part, no. Just because, like, even if my friends are busy, I think I can always reach out. My parents are very, very open and are always willing to talk to me. And outside of like even talking, another thing I like to do is I like actually started doing some meditation exercises. And
Ah,
like,
yes, that's what I was
yeah,
gonna recommend.
yeah, exactly. I know people say there's like it's all hokum, but like I've done like there's a lot of research that
Hokum.
suggests.
What a wonderful word.
Thank you for my vocabulary. But no, there's like a lot of studies that actually support like the value of meditation, and it actually like I've been doing it for a few months now. Um, like I
So,
started over this summer just because like I knew I was gonna get like super like amped up like right before medical school, super nervous.
so then, I guess two things real quick. I do want to say that there have been a few new neuroscience
Yeah,
studies on meditation, and it does really, really, it does reduce
exactly,
stress.
exactly.
Has amazing effects on anxiety, amazing effects on depression.
That's what I hear. Yep,
And it's crazy because it's free and you're literally trying
exactly.
to do nothing, but like so many people just think, oh, it's not real,
Yeah,
it's something
exactly.
you pay to go to a yoga class to do, or
Yeah, and
you're
you don't
just
even have
sitting
to
there
pay
looking silly.
anything.
Yeah,
Exactly. You can just do
exactly.
breathing
It's
exercises or something. Like 10 minutes a day, like in the morning, get up, do it right before you go to class, and it really does help. Like,
right. And I mean, it's such a great alternative because it's so natural. And I definitely
exactly.
see a lot of people uh,
Mm.
switch to drugs instead of something that you could just sit in your room and do for 10 minutes. Even like 10 minutes is a long time. If you've
Yeah,
ever tried to meditate and you're like trying to set for
it's
10 minutes,
hard. It's hard.
yeah,
But
after like minute four,
yeah,
you're like, oh my God, when is this alarm going to go
yeah,
off? Like, I don't want to keep doing this.
exactly.
But
Yeah. Yeah. But even if you think about it, like 10 minutes a day really isn't that long. Like medical schools, of course, they're busy, but like anyone I think can spare 10 minutes a day. And I think the nicest thing I think for meditation is that I think as like anyone who's really stressed, you have a lot of things like flooding your brain, like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do this, I have to get this done, I have to do all on this test. And I think meditation like helps you kind of keep everything in perspective and also helps you like kind of sit back a little bit and just, be more observant and trying to be involved in everything. And I really think like developing that mental attitude is something so important. Just like, surviving, getting through these 4 years and maintaining that
surviving.
like maintaining a healthy mindset. That's what
Right.
I would say.
Yeah.
Like
No, I totally understand.
it's hard though. It's hard, and I mean, like I'm definitely gonna have like mini panic attacks and stuff.
No, you're
But
gonna have breakdowns. Everyone has a breakdown. We
yeah,
understand.
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I'm 100% sure. But like I'm very happy to say that. Like even today, like I just meditated before talking to you. Like it really does help, and I think like having those outlets to use every day really will, kind of help the process.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, in a way, this podcast is kind of like a form of therapy for me, just
Mhm.
because it gives me time to just sit down and talk to people, not really focus so much on like, oh my God, what am I doing after I graduate? I need to get a
Yeah, you don't have
job.
to worry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just sit down and you definitely learn something. Like that's what I love about podcasting, or what I love about just having conversations with interesting people is that I can learn something like that. I mean, I don't remember the exact word, but like the eye condition that you suffered from, like that's something that's
Yeah,
completely new to me.
amblyopia. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So okay, so I had another question, and I was just curious, what kind of like meditation, like do you just, is there a specific kind of method that you've looked up, like some kind of
Um,
yogic breathing, or is it something just like you kind of just chill out and
Actually, yeah. So I actually like was looking online, and I was just like on App Store, so I found this pretty cool app called Headspace. It's like a free app
yes,
though. Oh,
I've
you use
heard it.
Headspace? You use it,
I
or
don't use it, but
you
it
should try it, man. You should try
I've tried
it.
it before, and I mean it does have a free. Did you pay for it or?
No, no, no. I'm not paying for anything.
There
Yeah,
we go. There's that
I'm not gonna pay.
the Asian blood. No way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I definitely advocate for Headspace. It's great. I think they have like a 9 or 12 day
Yeah, 10-day
program.
free trial. I just like run through that. Like after I'm done with 10 days, I just go through day one again. And it's all the same thing.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, so it's interesting because like people think meditation is just like, oh, you just sit there and then you make a ring with your fingers and you just say om to yourself.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's actually a lot of different kinds of meditation. There's
It's true.
so there's definitely there's meditation where you try to focus on nothing, and I think that's probably I haven't hit that level yet because
Yeah, I can't
supposedly
do that. Yeah.
you need to focus on your breathing
Mm.
and just become so fixated on your breathing until the point where suddenly you just kind of forget that you're focusing on your breathing, and then that's when you really get into like that nothingness. So it's like
Yeah.
an out of body experience almost, and people experience like
Mm.
auras or some kind of revelation.
Yeah.
So those are really
It's really
difficult.
hard to hit that, yeah. I
But I
think
think
that takes like years of practice, to get to that state,
yeah,
or even months or something like that.
but I think with the Headspace app, I think there was like at least the one that I tried, they
Yeah.
focused on like being mindful of keeping like a positive attitude and like taking in
Yeah.
like the traffic and the
Mhm.
sounds that are around you and just
Exactly,
letting that to
exactly.
calm you down. And I think that's a really interesting, almost like a
Yeah,
psychological
that's true.
association.
Yeah. No,
So
it
that
was
you,
nice because yeah, they had like different videos, I think, and they had like different like things to focus on, I guess, for each of the videos. And sometimes they, like you were saying, like kind of sit outside the traffic, not get involved. Sometimes, not to let the negatives really pull you down. And then they talk about like breathing exercises and focusing on like your environment, and then from your environment go towards like your inner self and focus on breathing. So I like their approach to it. It's interesting.
yeah, it's definitely. I mean, guided meditation is definitely going to be a lot easier to transition into than
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
just like sitting and not knowing how long do I
Mhm.
breathe in,
Exactly.
what do I hold it for, what do I breathe out, what do I do with my eyes, my hands,
Mhm.
so
It's definitely good for beginners, definitely.
yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
something that I advocate for beginners, and I
Yeah.
mean it's just such a great way to just spend like 10 minutes of your day to
Exactly.
completely change the next what 23 hours and 50 minutes.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it only takes 10 minutes. It's really not that long. So like, you shouldn't make an excuse. Like, I don't have time for this. I can't do this.
Right,
I guess people like get that idea. Like, oh, I'm not really getting anything. I'm not doing anything productive. But like, in the long run, you really are like getting a healthier, more calm mindset, and that will go a
right.
long ways in the
And that
future.
mindset honestly changes the efficiency that you work throughout the rest of the day.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's honestly shaving down the amount of time that you need to do whatever it is you're so
Mm-hmm.
busy with.
Definitely. I think it's a healthier mindset, but I also think you definitely gain it more like you get more focused like through meditating, and I think that like helps you be more efficient, as you were saying, be more productive and less like likely to become distracted while studying or doing what you need to do. And in the long run, I think that's going to save you a lot of time, just make you happier and healthier as a person.
So then how long do you typically like, is it usually just always through Headspace or do you ever try it on your own?
Yeah, so actually, like I know my friend actually was doing meditation also, and she was just like she talked to me about like you can do various forms of meditation. So what you was talking about, like there's like this mindfulness practice, right? I'm sure you probably heard of it, and it's like mindfulness in terms of like doing basic things, like if you're eating like cereal, right? So you're just
Right.
completely mindful about eating cereal. Like you don't think about anything else. You just think about like chewing it. You think about the various flavors, the texture, and you just think solely about that for like 5 or 10 minutes. And it's really hard to do that. But like, so I guess those are mindfulness principles, and those like help again help you kind of like filter out all these other distractions in your life and just focus on one thing, and just become more, I guess, cognizant of like and more present of the world around you. So that's like something I've tried, but for me, like personally, I think you have to be a bit more skilled to do that. So I've been sticking with Headspace for now. I think maybe as the months progress I might try something else, but right now I like it because like Headspace just gives me like 10 minutes every day. It's like very regimented. 10 minutes in the morning, I can do it. It like goes for 10 minutes and then I'm done. But there's
Right.
definitely different things I'd suggest. Like people can try like mindfulness exercises. You can look it up. I actually tried this other meditation exercise. It was called like loving kindness meditation. So it's like 15 minutes, and what they do is like there's this woman talking, and this exercise is meant to try to make you more helpful as a person. And so pretty much this woman just talks about, or she pretty much just like mentions and talks about trying to be like kind to like your neighbors. She talks first about like how you should think of a friend or family member, say kind things to them. She tells you certain kind things to like repeat mentally in your head, right? And then you kind of branch out from friends and family to like acquaintances and neighbors, and then ultimately like to the whole world. So it's called like the loving kindness meditation.
Huh.
And yeah, so it's interesting. It really helps build that sense of compassion and kindness, which I think is an important skill to have as well. And I tried it a few times. Like, I think I still might just need more practice in terms of just like staying focused. I definitely got distracted. But it's like it's like a different style, and I think for everyone, like to each his own, right? So everything is gonna be like relative to you. What works for you is gonna be something different.
Right. That's totally understandable. And there's definitely like I was surprised when I started getting into meditation exactly like how many different types there were out there.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
mean, like there are some. So just like a quick two plugs. There are some that I know that uh, Wim Hof. Have you ever heard of Wim Hof?
Mm-mm. What's that
So it's
about?
Wimhof. He's some guy who's some Dutch guy, I think, but he holds like a like crazy Guinness World Book of Records. He climbed Mount Everest in his
Mm-hmm.
underwear and
Oh
snowshoes.
wow, it's insane.
Yeah, he's run like a marathon in like the Sahara Desert, and he attributes it all to like his version of some kind of yogic breathing that changes the oxygen level in your bloodstream, which changes the acidity.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
through
pretty
that,
interesting.
yeah, there's actually some. I mean, I'm super big on martial arts, so there's actually some UFC
Yeah.
fighters that hired, like I guess hired him or his method, and like an effect that would really be detrimental towards like a fighter who's training in a camp is that halfway through their testosterone levels would just drop because they just exerted all of it.
Yeah.
So what his method does is it actually gives it like a second biological bump, and it's like that's crazy because that's essentially what a lot of competitors take drugs for.
Yeah.
Like, so the fact that
That's
you have
insane.
something
Yeah.
so natural in your body, and
Exactly. And there's not going to be any, like, there can't be any bad things that happen, like from meditation. You can only
right.
either, like, nothing could happen, like, if you're not really into it, or, just get better. Like,
Right. So I mean that's definitely one extreme form of meditation where I've seen that has some kind of uh value.
yeah.
And then on
So
the
was
other
that like
hand,
a breathing exercise, or what was that?
I'm sorry.
Was that like a breathing exercise, or what
So
kind of?
he does a very weird um hyperventilation,
Mhm.
but it saturates your body with oxygen. And
Okay.
yeah, I mean definitely look into it if you can. There's
Yeah.
tons of footage. Very
Definitely
weird
can do
guy.
it.
Super happy.
Yeah.
Um
It probably gives you more energy throughout the day, I'd imagine. If you,
Yeah, and I mean, just coming from like a whole medical side, they've done tests
yeah.
where they've like injected him with a virus that would normally make people like throw up and like be like really sick, but
Yeah.
with through his like breathing method, he's just sat there and he just had like a
Oh,
small
wow.
cough. Like it boosted his it boosted his immune system,
That's pretty cool.
and I mean, it might seem kind of like a pseudoscience. I don't know, but like I definitely like I've
Yeah.
tried his method, and he like advocates like a lot of like cold shock therapy using like cold showers and ice baths. And I mean, you can Google that and you can find like
Yeah.
there's a
You
whole
said
bunch
it's
of like
called Wim Hof, right?
yeah. So Wimhof,
HOF.
right?
Okay, I'll look him up.
So
Yeah.
definitely take a look into that. But then on the other hand, there's also some like really deep meditative, uh, like really deep meditation where some people have experienced where they can tap into their, I don't know if I'm saying pineal gland, is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Right. And what happens is that they find a way to actually like force their pineal gland to exert DMT, which for those of you who don't know is I'm pretty sure is the active ingredient in ayahuasca, the psychedelic drug. So
Mhm.
you have this molecule in your brain that basically lets you trip balls. And And there's people, so these visions that people get from meditation, it's actually based in science. Like they've found a
Yeah.
way to become so invested into this different state of mind that they can activate their pineal gland to
Mhm.
release more DMT, and they have these almost like these psychedelic visions,
Yeah.
and that's something that's definitely incredible. I mean, that
Yeah.
something that's biologically wired into us that we just don't tap
Yeah.
into.
And yeah, I'm sure that must take a lot of practice and
Oh yeah, oh
exposure.
yeah.
You know, like
I mean,
that
that's
sounds
my
like
goal. That's my goal in the long
yeah,
run, but that's gonna take a few years.
but yeah, I mean, and even like after every day, I think like if you make an effort, you know, to meditate, like you may not get to that level like you were talking about immediately, but I think you notice small differences in like your level of calmness. And I definitely notice like whenever I'm stressed and I meditate, you know, in the morning, I definitely feel like less woozy and less anxious, I guess. And that really does carry over each day. So
Yeah.
even like these small differences, you know, not even necessarily like those big jumps. Like ultimately, that would be the best thing to get, like those kind of visions, maybe. But you know, like I think those small like progressions every day that really does make a difference, at least in my opinion, in terms of us becoming having a healthier mindset.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely advise against anyone who thinks that they're going to immediately be good at it, because and
Oh yeah, definitely not. Yeah,
that sounds so weird, because you're literally just sitting there breathing and doing nothing.
yeah. It sounds so simple, right? But
But
it's
it's
not.
actually, yeah, it's one of the
Yeah,
hardest things to do. And
definitely, definitely.
yeah,
But
okay,
I would
well,
definitely recommend people, like although you might not see immediate results, I think you should definitely stick with it because I think you're gonna gradually see results and you're gonna be very happy, I think, in the long run. If you do something like as simple as 10 minutes a day,
yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure you got somewhere to go or something, so we'll wrap
Yeah.
this up. But
All good.
it's all right. Yeah, see, time just flies.
Yeah, I know, you're right. It's like 40 minutes, right?
Yeah, ish. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no, it's nice talking with you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure talking with you. By far one of the nicest people I know.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
And yeah, feel free to come on. I mean, later on. I mean, when we're busy in the semester, if you ever have some time, maybe we could do
Yeah,
another one of these.
definitely. I'll definitely
Yeah,
catch up to you.
but yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for coming on, and
Yeah.
I guess hopefully for the next one may or may not be another bro talk.
Okay.
But I I do have some people lined up that have been very, very flaky.
Okay.
So I don't know, to the listeners, I no promises, but hopefully hopefully you enjoyed this one, and I really appreciate it. If
Yeah, no
you
problem, dude.
so yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Get out of
Thanks.
here. Bye bye.
Yep. All right. Best of luck to you. Yep.